We continue now with the Gemara on Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis in Maseches Brachos. This is Berachos Daf 15b. The Gemara left off with a Mishnah by Kriyas HaMegillah, reading the Megillah. It said that anyone can read the Megillah except for a Cheresh, Shota v'Katan. The Gemara understood that to mean that anyone can read the Gemara except a Cheresh, means a Cheresh, even B'diavad, cannot read the Megillah. Who is the Tana who said that even B'diavad, if one cannot hear what he is saying, he is not Yotzei? That was Rabbi Yossi. If you remember on the last Amud, Rabbi Yossi was always assumed to have been saying that B'diavad it's a problem, that if a person reads something and he can't hear, it's a problem. Again, that was by Kriyas Shema, the original source, and so that would be the Shita over here as well. Again, Rabbi Yossi would then be the super strict source, the super strict Tana, I should say. And then we had a whole discussion, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Is Rabbi Yehuda like a middle ground? Does he hold that L'chatchila one should not do it, but if he does it and he can't hear himself, it is okay b'diavad? Or is Rabbi Yehuda completely permitting it? So the Gemara now goes through a similar discussion, very similar discussion to the one on Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph, and the Gemara says as follows: Dilma Rabbi Yehuda, maybe the author of this Mishnah by Megillah, which says that it's problematic for a Cheresh to read Megillah, maybe it is Rabbi Yehuda, u'lechatchila hudalo, and maybe that Mishnah means that lechatchila the Cheresh cannot read Megillah, hadiavad shaver dami, but b'diavad it would be okay, and Rabbi Yehuda is a middle shita, and maybe this Mishnah is a middle shita. Who says that this Mishnah is being completely strict when it comes to the reading of the Megillah? The Gemara says no. Lo sagadaitich, do not think that this Mishnah represents a middle ground. De katani Cheresh dumya de shota v'katan. First of all, Cheresh should be similar to Shota and Katan. It said a Cheresh, Shota, and Katan cannot read Megillah. Ma Shota v'Katan di'evid nami lo. Now we know that by a Shota, by an imbecile, and by a Katan, by a minor, even b'di'evid, their reading is no good. Av Cheresh di'evid nami lo. So too by a Cheresh, we know that b'di'evid, or we should assume rather, that b'di'evid it would be problematic. The Gemara says, how do you know? V'dil maha kedisa v'ha kedisa. Maybe each case has its own psak. One case, it's a problem b'di'evid, and one case, it's not a problem b'di'evid. Maybe by Cheresh, it's not a problem b'di'evid. By a Shot and a Katan, it is. How do you know? The Gemara still says, no, it can't be. In any case, you can't say this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan. Because in the seif of the Mishnah, it says that Rabbi Yehuda says that a Katan could read Megillah. Mechlal de Reisha lav Rabbi Yehuda. That would certainly imply that the Reisha, which says a Katan cannot read Megillah, is not Rabbi Yehuda. So in any case, you're going to have a problem saying that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda and represents some kind of middle ground. But the Gemara says, V'dil makula Rabbi Yehuda. No, maybe not. Maybe the entire Mishnah is actually authored by Rabbi Yehuda. Utrei gavne katan, and there's two different types of katan, which we will explain in a moment. And there are words missing in the Mishnah, and you should really read the Mishnah as follows: Hakol ksherin likros as hamegillah chutz mecheresh shota v'katan. Everybody is allowed to read Megillah except for a cheresh shota v'katan. Bamed devar mamurim b'katan shelo higia lechinuch. When is that true? That is true by a katan who has not yet reached the age of chinuch. Aval katan shehigia lechinuch, but a katan who is a little bit older, he's reached the age of chinuch. Afilo lechatchila kasher, he can read even lechatchila. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, those are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. She Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan, because Rabbi Yehuda allows it by a katan. So at this point, the Gemara is saying it is possible that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, A, and B, Rabbi Yehuda has this middle shita, which was a whole discussion before. Is he a middle shita or not? He says that it's a problem if you can't hear yourself lechatchila, but it's not a problem b'di'evid. That is right now the attempt of the Gemara. But the Gemara says, again, this is going to be very similar to the Shakla V'Tarya and the Gemara in the previous Amud. How can you say that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda represents a middle shita? Rabbi Yehuda braid Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. But what about the brisa that was taught by Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi? That if you have a deaf person who can speak but cannot hear, torem lechatchila, he's even allowed to take off truma lechatchila. So this would represent a super lenient opinion, and you have nobody to be the author. Money. Lo Rabbi Yehuda, v'lo Rabbi Yossi. This opinion, which is taught by Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, can't be Rabbi Yehuda and can't be Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda di'evidin lechatchila lo. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, we just said he's a middle shita where it's only okay b'di'evid, not lechatchila. Rabbi Yossi di'evid nami lo. And if it's Rabbi Yossi, we've been saying all along that Rabbi Yossi holds it's completely a problem, and he is totally strict and says even b'di'evid it's a problem if you can't hear what you're saying. Elamai, so rather what do you have to say? Rabbi Yehuda va'afilu lechatchila nami. So now you're back to saying that Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you can't hear what you're saying, it's not a problem at all, it's okay even lechatchila. and Rabbi Yehuda no longer represents a middle shita, but now you have no middle shita. Elahadatanya, but that which we learned in the Brisa, lo yivarech adam birchas hamazon belivo vim berach yatsa. It says in the Brisa that if a person should not say birchas hamazon in his heart, but if he does, he is yotze. So that represents a middle ground, even though you can't hear what you're saying. You're yotze b'diavad, but you shouldn't do it lechatchila. Mani lo Rabbi Yehuda v'lo Rabbi Yossi. If Rabbi Yehuda is completely lenient, that middle ground is nobody. It can't be Rabbi Yehuda, can't be Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda ha'amar afilu lechatchila nami. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, you just said Rabbi Yehuda allows it even lechatchila. Rabbi Yossi amar afilu diavad nami lo. And if it's Rabbi Yossi, you've been saying all along that Rabbi Yossi is completely strict and says even b'diavad it's a problem. So the basic issue is that we're stuck either way. If Rabbi Yehuda represents a middle shita, then we don't know how to interpret the brisa, which seems to say that even lechatchila it's okay. If Rabbi Yehuda represents a position that even lechatchila it's okay, we don't know how to interpret the brisa, which seems to indicate that there's a middle position. So the Gemara now says, you're right, there has to be a third position, the same shackle of Atari as the Gemara said in the previous Amud. Lo, no. Leolam Rabbi Yehuda, it is Rabbi Yehuda va'afila lechatchila nami. Really, Rabbi Yehuda represents a completely lenient opinion. He says it's okay even lechatchila, v'lo kasha, it's not a kasha, ha-didei, ha-derabe. There's another shita, his own shita, and then there's another shita, the shita of his Rebbe. The Tanya we learned in a Brisa, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, hakore as Shema, when someone reads Shema, tzarech she'ashmiya la'ozno, the person needs to be able to hear what he's saying, shenemar, like it says, Shema Yisrael, and that's going to be a middle shita that you need to do it, but if you do not, then b'diavad it is okay. And then Amar lo Rabbi Meir says back to Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, harehu omer asher anochim etzavcha hayom al levavecha, it says on your heart, achar kavanas halev hein hadavarim. So therefore, it only goes by one's kavana. Even if he can't hear, it is okay, even lechatchila. Rabbi Meir will now be a completely lenient shita. So the Gemara now says, "Hashta das is lachi." Well, once you just found the shita of Rabbi Meir, afilu temer Rabbi Yehuda karabe svirle, we can go back and say Rabbi Yehuda is a middle shita. He holds like his Rebbe, velo kash, and it's not difficult. Ha Rabbi Yehuda, ha Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda will be the middle ground shita. Rabbi Meir will be the completely lenient shita that says even lechatchila it's okay, and we have no problem. So to summarize, the conclusion is the same as it was on the previous Amud. Rabbi Meir now represents the most lenient opinion and says even if you can't hear what you're saying, it is okay, even lechatchila. Rabbi Yehuda represents the middle position that lechatchila one should be able to hear what he's saying, but if he can't, it is okay b'diavad. And Rabbi Yossi continues to be the strictest shita and says you are not yotze at all if you cannot hear what you're saying. Gemara now moves into what is the psak halacha. Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Shila. Rav Chisda says in the name of Rav Shila, halacha Rav Yehuda she'amar mishum Rav Elazar ben Azariah. The halacha is like Rav Yehuda in the name of his Rebbe, Rav Elazar ben Azariah, the middle shita. The halacha Rav Yehuda, and the halacha is like Rav Yehuda, which we've now concluded is also the middle shita. So he's basically stressing twice that the halacha is like the middle shita. With tzricha, he needs to stress twice. He needs to say the halacha is like Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav Elazar ben Azariah, and he needs to say Rav Yehuda. Why? If he only said the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, as this entire daf really has demonstrated, Rabbi Yehuda's shita is unclear. We wouldn't know what Rabbi Yehuda said. We might think Rabbi Yehuda said it's okay even lechatchila. That's why he needs to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who seemed to be clearly a middle shita. So why can't we just say that? If we would have only said the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the truth is, he doesn't use the clearest language either. It says, tzarech, it is required, which we're understanding to mean it's required lichatchila, but b'diavad it's okay. But you might think he means it is required, and even b'diavad it's a problem. Ein lo takana. Ein lo takana. There's no way to fix this. It's totally problematic. Maybe that's shita like Rabbi Yossi. Kamash malan halacha Rabbi Yehuda. That's why he has to tell you the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So by stressing it twice, he is making it clear that the halacha is like the middle shita. Now Rav Yosef puts some final qualifications on this entire machlokas. Amar Rav Yosef says, machlokas b'kriyas Shema. The entire machlokas about whether you need to hear what you're saying is specifically by kriyas Shema. Avo b'shar mitzvos, but when it comes to other mitzvos, and Rashi here says b'shar mitzvos means b'chol ha-brachos, when it comes to all brachos, okay? So by other mitzvos, divrei hakol lo yatsa. Everybody agrees you are not Yotzei if you cannot hear what you're saying. There's no machlokas even. T'chsiv haskes u'Shema Yisrael. Because it says haskes u'Shema Yisrael, which we're now understanding to mean Shema Yisrael. You need to hear what you are saying. So the Gemara says that really doesn't make sense. Meisvei, we have a question from a Brisa which says explicitly, Lo yevarech adam birchas hamazon belibo v'im beirach yotza. A person shouldn't bench in his heart, but if he does, he is yotzei. So that clearly, birchas hamazon is a different bracha. It is not Kriya Shema, and apparently you are yotzei. So apparently, Haskesu Shema Yisrael does not teach you that this is problematic b'diavad. You're right. If Rav Yosef said anything, this is what he said. Amar Rav Yosef said, Machlokas b'Kriya Shema. The Machlokas is by Kriya Shema d'chsiv Shema Yisrael. By Kriya Shema it says the words Shema Yisrael. You need to hear what you're saying. Aval v'shar mitzvahs divrei hakol yatsa. But when it comes to other mitzvos, everybody will agree that you actually are yotzei b'diavad. It's not a problem b'diavad. V'haksiv haskes u'Shema Yisrael. What do we do with this pasuk of haskes u'Shema Yisrael? Shouldn't that teach us by all mitzvahs that this is a problem? No. Hahu b'divrei Torah ksiv. That pasuk is not talking about hearing what you're saying when you're saying brachos. That pasuk is talking about divrei Torah. Rashi says what it means is kisasu atzmechem al divrei Torah. You have to really push yourselves, crush yourselves in order to learn Torah properly, and that's really what haskes u'Shema Yisrael is talking about. The next part of the Mishnah was discussing a machlokas about reading Shema and not being medaktek, not being careful in the letters, and there it was reversed. There Rabbi Yossi was the more lenient opinion, and Rabbi Yehuda was the stricter opinion. Karavalo diktek beosioseh. If a person reads and is not careful in the letters, Amar Rav Tavi, Amar Rav Yoshia, halacha kedivrei shneim lahakil. Rav Tavi says in the name of Rav Yoshia, the halacha in both cases is we are lenient. So meaning, we are lenient that you don't have to hear what you are saying, and you're still yotzei, and we are lenient that you do not have to be careful in all the letters in order to be yotzei. So in one case we are lenient like Rabbi Yehuda, in the other case we are lenient like Rabbi Yossi. That's what it means, kedivrei shnehem lahakil. V'yamar Rav Tavi, Amar Rav Yoshi. Now that we quoted something from Rav Tavi in the name of Rav Yoshi, we quote another item of drasha, another item of drush from Rav Tavi in the name of Rav Yoshi. Rav Tavi in the name of Rav Yoshi says, "Mai dechsiv." What does the pasuk mean when it says shalosh heina lotis bana? There are three things that are never satisfied. Sha'ol v'otzer rechem, and two of them that are listed next to each other there. Sha'ol is the grave, going to the grave. Otzer rechem is the womb that is not able to give birth. And you can see the pasuk over there in Mishlei for the entire three things. But the Gemara here wants to discuss why are we putting Sha'ol next to Otzer Rechem? How are they comparable? What does Sha'ol, what does the grave have to do with the womb? To tell you, just like a womb takes in and then produces outward, so too the grave, it goes in and it goes out, meaning the idea of tchias hamesim. Something is going to go in the grave is eventually going to come out of the grave, similar to a womb. And isn't it a kal v'chomer? If a womb, where things enter into the womb in private, it comes out making a lot of noise. The baby comes out making a lot of noise, presumably. Sha'ol, when it comes to the grave, where you go into the grave with a lot of crying, with a lot of eulogy, with a lot of noise, shouldn't it be appropriate that that which comes out will also be with a lot of noise, with a lot of voices? From here we can have a response to those who say there is no tchias hamesim in the Torah. Gemara now continues at the two dots. Tani Rav Oshia Kamei de Rava. Rav Oshia taught in front of Rava the following. Uchsavtem, it says, and you will write these words. This is referring to the fact that you write, it's talking about that you write in the Mezuzah, and you write, Al Mezuzos Peisecho Visharecha, you're going to write these words of Shema in your Mezuzah. So the Gemara says, Hakol, Rav Oshia teaches here, Hakol b'chsav, write it all, afilu tzavos, even the instruction that says to write it. So meaning when you write in the tefillin, in the mezuzah, these parshios, also write in the words and write these words. You might think this is just an instruction, it doesn't actually have to be written. This is not just an instruction, this is also part of what needs to be written and placed in the mezuzah and in the tefillin. So Amar Le, he said back to him, Damar Lechamani, who is the author of this? Who told you this idea? Rabbi Yehuda, it would seem to be Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Gabe Sota, because by Sota also we write down the parsha of Sota, which we write it on a parchment, which we then go and erase in the bitter waters. So by Sota, alos kosef, tzavos eno kosef. So Rabbi Yehuda actually says over there, you write the curses, but you do not write the part of the Torah which gave the instruction to write the curses. And why would this be different? Why over here by Mezuzah and Tefillin would we write what we do not do by Sota? So the Gemara explains. There it says, write down these curses. Here it writes, and you will write a much longer word. The word uchsavtam is written instead of v'chasav in order to stress the fact that you're supposed to write fully everything, even the instructions get written down. So the Gemara says, is that really what's happening by v'chasav? Atu taimei de Rabbi Yehuda mishum dechsiv v'chasav? Is the reason of Rabbi Yehuda really because it says the word v'chasav and that tells you not to write down that phrase? Taimei de Rabbi Yehuda mishum dechsiv olos in tzavos lo. The real reason of Rabbi Yehuda is because it says, and you will write the olos, clearly implying you write the olos, you write the curses, and you do not write the tzavos. So that's a specific exclusion. Isn't that the real reason? So, and then in a case where you don't have that exclusion, so you wouldn't have the exclusion. You don't need the word uchsavtem to teach us. Automatically, you should write it all. So the Gemara says, no, it's true. We do need the word uchsavtem. Because I might have thought that we should make a kind of a gezerah shava, the word ksiva to the word ksiva. The word v'chasav and uchsavtim are similar words. So mehasam, we should learn out from over there. Mahasam alos in tzavos lo. Just like by sota, you write the curses, you don't write the instructions. Zafachanami tzavos lo. So to here, by writing down Shema, by mezuzah and tefillin, you don't write the instruction. So kasav rachman uchsavtim afilu tzavos. So that's why the Torah says uchsavtim. That's why you need that word uchsavtim to tell you that you even write the instructions and you do not make this limud from Sota. Now the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tani Rav Ovadia kamei de Rava. Rav Ovadia taught before Rava. V'limadatem, and you should teach them. So we're going to make a drush on this. Sheyehe limud chatam, that your pronunciation of the words should be complete. Sheyitein revach ben hadvekim. Make sure to put a little of a break between the dvekim, those letters that are stuck together. And we're going to give an example of that. Ani Rava Basrei, Rava answered after Rav Ovadia taught this. He explained, Kegon al livavecha. Like the word al livavecha, you have a lamed connecting to a lamed. Don't say it all at once, al livavecha. Say al livavecha. Make a little pause. Same with al levavchem, bechol levavcha, bechol levavchem, esev bisadecha, vavadetem mehera, hakanaf psil, and eschem me'eretz. All of those are examples of areas where when you're reciting Kriya Shema, you should have a little break between those words because the letter at the end of the word and the letter at the beginning of the next word are the same. Amar Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina says, Kol hakore Kriyas Shema umedaktek ba'os yoseh. Anyone who reads Kriyas Shema and is careful in pronunciation of the letters, mitzanin lo gehenim. We cool off gehenim for him. Where do we learn this out from? Shenamar, like it says, Beforas shakai melachim ba teshaleg bat Salmon. Now what the pasuk really means is when Hashem spreads out the kings, it will snow in Salmon. Spreads out Shakai. When Shakai spreads out Malachim, the kings, Teshalig bet Salmon. It's going to snow in Salmon. The Gemara, though, makes a drasha. Al tikre befores ella beforesh. Don't say it's separation, but rather it means beforesh, when you explain, when you enunciate the words. Al tikre bet Salmon, and don't read bet Salmon, ella bet Salmavis. It's bet Salmavis, which refers to Gehenim. Here it would be worthwhile to see Rashi, who explains this more in full. So Rashi says here at the bottom of the page, Befares Shakai, im tefaresh Shakai, if you explain Shakai Hashem, which means, V'tavdil tevos shel malchus shamayim, meaning you separate the words that refer to malchus shamayim, malachim ba, that's malachim ba. The pasuk said again, Befares Shakai malachim ba, O malchus shamayim is a reference by malachim. Teshaleg betsalmon is HaTorah, the Torah. Asher ba malachim yimlochu, which through the Torah kings become kings. Teshaleg utetzanin lach, so it's going to snow. It'll be cool for you. As tzeil hamaves, the gates of Gehenim, tzeil hamaves, referring to Gehenim, will be cooled off for you. And so that drasha teaches us this idea. We're at the two dots here at the bottom. V'yomer Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina lama nismachu. Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina says, why are the following psukim put next to one another? And we will see when we go to the next daf, Daf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, what this statement is referring to.